Hello and welcome to the January 24th, 2024 first meeting of the Environmental Management Commission. We're sitting in Hilo and have looks like 8 members. One is currently just outside the door. And so I call the meeting to order at 9:11, I guess it's. The first item on the agenda is approval of the minutes of our last meeting, November 29th, 2023. If I could get a motion. Laura, second. Do I get to second anything?
Who do you recognize as a secondary?
What are you guys in Zoom?
I'll second it.
Okay, so, any comments, corrections that haven't gone into Peter yet? Hearing none, should we have a vote? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye, aye, everybody. Any opposed? Hearing none, minutes are approved. Okay, statement from the chair. It is almost amazing that we have a full set of commissioners minus one. I'll get to that shortly. John Burns, I wanted to pass along what he sent since he wasn't able to be at our last meeting. He had some kind words for everybody, so I read it off. It has been a pleasure working with you all over the last several years. I've enjoyed all the discussions and creative input we have provided to the county to help with our waste management needs on this island. I appreciate all the hard work you do and thank you all for your service and being such enjoyable individuals to work with. I wish you all the best in years to come. So that's John Burns, who his term ended, and that leads me to the new members on the group, and one is Jim Beats, who's taken over District 1, and welcome. Excited to have you here, and another one who knows about our waters. That's good. Yes. I'll go through everybody and then come back and ask you guys to maybe make some comments. Laura Casio from District 2 is here. Delatsuka is on the Zoom. Yay, Del. Erica Perez is our new District 4 representative, replacing the irreplaceable John Olson, who is also here as a testifier. Melissa Cardwell represents District 5, and she's just informed us that she just cannot do the kind of participation on the commission that she would like to, so she will be withdrawing. And however that process works. So if anybody knows someone who is in District 5 that might be a candidate, she's going to be looking around as well, so that we could have a full slate. District 6 is Lee McIntosh. Thank you, Lee. District 7, Gonzalo Garcia. Who's already made a motion, so that's great. District 8, Dot Norris. And then I am Georgine Adams, the chair, and also District 9 representative. And I thought maybe we could ask the new people on the group. We got Gonzalo last meeting, I believe, to give a little bit of his background. But Jim, if you wanted to let us know, why are you here?
Why am I here? That's a good question, right? I retired from the university last year, and my position there was in marine sciences, but most of what I've done over my career is in fisheries and fisheries science. So I started my work actually in the US Caribbean way long ago, almost over 45 years ago, almost 50, and worked in, well, my first job was working in water quality within Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. So I'm very familiar with water issues, water treatment especially. I worked on that on both sides, both on the management side and the review side. So I have several years of experience in that with different permitting process such as the national NetDeeds permits, et cetera. And the dark underbelly of it, which can be some of the you know, more challenging parts, which is the consulting projects that are done, positively and negatively, unfortunate. So then after that, I worked in government as a government scientist, mostly in fisheries, but also water quality, and subsequently moved to Hawaii and have been working at the university, researching fisheries, still water quality, a lot of water quality projects around the Big Island, including Puako, which Erica is very familiar with, and I'm sure we'll share more about that later. So that's the brief.
Thank you and welcome. And nobody's shy here, so if you've got comments or questions, raise your hand. Okay, and I'll try to acknowledge. Our other new attendee from District 4, Erica Perez, so we get a little background.
Sure. Aloha and good morning. Thank you so much for inviting me and encouraging me to be here. I hate going after Jim, but it's not going to be as impressive. I have a background in marine science and conservation biology from the university. I have also really been heavily involved with water quality and sanitation across Hawaii County, as well as the state, for about 10 years. I have worked with multiple different nonprofit, state and government organizations to develop a water quality sampling community effort that we work with closely with Department of Health, filling water quality gaps around sanitation and Beach Act methodologies. I also have worked really closely with the Puako community. So for the past 10 years, investigating alternatives for wastewater treatment, which was great to hear the Corollo update yesterday and Ramsey's update. I have sat at the state level on the cesspool conversion working group. So worked with the folks on that working group to put together the plan and identifying kind of missing links of information needed to arrive at a thoughtful place to try to move cesspools and transition them across the state. So I have really been invested in personally as well as professionally in kind of moving sanitation and clean water for community and in regards to community health and coral reef and environmental safety.
Great addition to the group. Appreciate it. The next agenda item is public statements. And John Olson, since you're here, we'll let you go first. Is Jennifer on
She'll
Zoom?
make a statement also.
Okay,
2 statements.
so John Olson.
3 minutes.
So, quickly, I've worn a number of different hats in my time here. Probably because I have a background in building. I'm a union trained carpenter. And I was there for the build out of Los Angeles. I've had some practice. I've also become educated on the issues of wastewater as part of that. My name is also on a federal civil rights complaint against the state of Hawaii and the county of Hawaii for the manner in which they have done development. That is, if you know anything about the federal civil rights, it's a creature that does not die. All you have to do is shake it a little bit and it wakes up. And the question is, do we want to shake it? And I think we've come to the point where we have no choice but to do that. I don't know whether you've been out to Puna lately, but the building, of course, is moving along exponentially. Filling in the 50,000 lots that are there and more that could be subdivided out. There are many parcels that are sitting there in larger states at the moment, but they own the right to subdivide. So I started with transportation. That's what the original civil rights complaint was about. And that is no less of a problem today than it was back then, unfortunately.
Can I interrupt you, for protocol? Which item on the agenda are you?
Well,
Okay.
it's wastewater. And I mean, that's always on the agenda of this body.
Okay.
That's,
Just want to make sure.
Wastewater management plan, right?
say again,
Wastewater management plan. Wastewater management plan.
I couldn't,
The wastewater management.
oh, the wastewater management part, because that is a preview of this body. One of the previews of this body is to oversee that. So, and that ties correctly to that civil rights complaint that we filed back when the county was not doing, and it isn't doing now what it's supposed to be doing. So anyway, you're gonna hear more about that. We're putting together another committee to move forward in that, and we'll keep you posted as to where that is.
Thank you.
I'll take any questions later if you.
Okay, so come up later. Thank you very much, John. And Jennifer Navarro
Speak on switch.
had submitted two, and thank you for the one, Jennifer, but her written testimony, and I hope you had a chance to look through it. If you haven't, please do, but summarize it if you will. Don't read all 60 pages of it, Jennifer, but
No, I won't. Oh, so I did submit testimony on the agenda item addressing extended producer responsibility legislation for packaging, and I just wanted to update the commission on what's likely to be the bills that will move this year. So there's been, I guess, for about 3 years now, extended producer responsibility legislation that's been introduced. It's been difficult to pass something like an actual full program. So Rep. Lowen, who has been our champion on this issue, thought it was best that this year a needs assessment bill be introduced. And essentially it's just, it's going to kind of look at like what is the landscape of packaging waste currently and what types of infrastructure and costs and education needs and all of that sort of thing we need to put in place going forward to design a system of extended producer responsibility. So it's something that some states do when they fail to pass a full program bill. We did have the opportunity to work with trade associations and lobbyists, like to actually have them review the bills and give input. Of course, they, it's not a full program, so they're a little bit more supportive. The timeline on this all seems really sad to me personally, but I don't know, bureaucracy moves very slowly. So there's what should be companion bills being introduced in the House and the Senate. I think that will be addressed. I think a wrong version was introduced on the Senate side or submitted it's SB 2368, and then the House bill is 1688. And so we'll see how it goes this year. If the county and counties can be supportive of this legislation and submitting testimony, that will be really helpful. I know Hawaii County DEM has been really good about submitting testimony, but it's harder for some of the other counties. They have to get permission up to the level of the mayor. So that's kind of the scoops on the EPR for this year. I also did submit testimony just on the officer elections and just recommending that we continue Georgine Adams as chair. I think she's doing an awesome job and brings a lot of energy and a lot of, desire for solutions and actually moving things forward rather than just talking about the needs, like actually trying to define and address the needs to improve our solid waste management. And I don't remember if I said it at the beginning, but I want to welcome the new commissioners. You guys sound awesome. I think Erica, I've run into you. I took the VI, well, it wasn't VI, I guess it was the community college. What was the name of that program? Anyways, I think you know what I'm yeah, the working water program. Because my interest, solid waste is my background, but I have, having participated in these meetings over the years, become interested in how do we address our wastewater management issues. So I know you bring a wealth of experience to the commission, and it sounds like the other commissioner, who I don't remember your name, sorry, also brings a lot of background. So welcome, guys. Happy to have you.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Chair, I have a comment to add.
Laura?
Thank you, Jennifer, for your testimony. A lot of good details in there. I do want to add for the record that there is a bit more history as well that was not in the testimony, and that Senate Bill 145, I think it's important to acknowledge because it's somebody that is often at the EMC and involved in waste and resource management. That the predecessor for Senate Bill 1458 was introduced and drafted by our state Senate office in 2021. And Representative Lowen did have another bill as well. And, the two had different levels of traction and input, and that the actual drafter of the language is Christine Kubat in her capacity as my chief of staff. And so it's important, I think, just for the record, because there is a lot of knowledge in that drafting and why it was drafted that way, especially as we go into the details of different versions of EPR and the whole discussion that has its own history and timeline for the last 3 years. And that our office had drafted that original parent bill to 1458 in 2021 and asked Representative Lowen if she would introduce it in the coming year, 2022. So I just wanted to also add that in so that it's in the record. Thank you so much for your testimony.
For those of you who are new, Laura Castillo was the state senator for
District 1.
District 1.
Yes, I know, with the meetings.
Okay. Just saying, when she's talking about our Senate office, it was her Senate office.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, and just to be clear, the reason why I say it's not my bill is because there are many drafters and a lot of input in it, but to give credit to Christine Kubat, because she actually did draft that bill before we sent it to Senate drafting.
Okay. And as far as the procedures go, is it formally introduced for this year, or is it?
So
Does
so
anybody know that yet?
my knowledge, and I think is what Jennifer is referring to, is that there is a different draft. There is a whole different version or approach to the current bill, which is more of a, if I'm understanding the language, I don't have it for me, but it's a task force or a study. Is what she said. A study for the needs assessment. Yeah, so it's a different bill, but they're all related on subject matter and have similar intentions, but there are some different.
Well, we can talk
big
about that
differences,
a little later on the
Yeah.
agenda when we're
Can I
going
just
to get.
ask for a clarifying question? Just so I'm understanding, what Jennifer submitted are SB and HB bills that are different than what Laura is speaking towards. And so are all three of these different, House Bill, Senate Bill, and then the old Senate Bill 1458, those all three are around consumer responsibility. And then there's going to be another one that's new this year drafted.
Yes, because 1458 is technically still sitting in WAM
Okay.
because it's a biennium.
Okay.
So because it's a biennium, they're still alive, but oftentimes they will introduce new bills as well.
And then we'll learn more later.
Okay, well, we'll cover it when we get to the discussion on item 5.4 on the agenda. But my understanding, again, is that the two bills you have. Jennifer, did you disappear? Okay, she disappeared.
Still here.
Uh,
I'm still here.
Oh, you're still here? Have these two bills been introduced?
These have,
So they're up.
They
Yeah.
got assigned a number, so I assume
they're
they're
introduced.
they're
They're
in
assigned
the,
numbers.
okay. All right,
So those are new bills that are for this year.
okay, great. Got it.
This is the study.
Are there any other public comment? On Zoom or phone? Hearing none, I'll close that item. And I'd like to make a request, oh, I guess a query first. Are the speakers from Corolla available now?
Yes,
Here?
we're here.
Okay, just for timing's sake, I'm going to ask if, we can move the discussion of the presentation that was made just yesterday to, the communications reports, I don't know what the other C, and O stands for, a committee of the council on the, wastewater management plan, integrated wastewater management plan, and in particular cesspool conversion planning. Wondering if we could put that first before we hit unfinished business. Does anybody have a problem with that? No. Then we shall do so. So if Ramsey, you want to introduce or kick off the discussion that was done yesterday with the council?
Yes, thank you, Georgianne. Thank you, commissioners. Most of you probably, or some of you have seen the presentation yesterday. If you had a chance to see it, what we would like to do today is I invited the consultant to address, rather than going through the whole presentation again, just to address some questions or concerns or ideas you guys may have. But we could just give you brief description of the presentation, which we did yesterday, is to address the county's direction into complying with state resolution HCR 208, in addition to implement the integrated waste management plan for the entire island. This topic has been in discussions since I started pretty much about 3 years ago. Some of the commissioners that were around back then understand the direction that we committed to take to create a better roadmap for the county of Hawaii to utilize from the wastewater perspective. And we introduced that yesterday, the why and the how of why we're doing it now and the reasons. So with that, we would love to entertain any questions that may triggered through yesterday's presentations. Thank you, Georgianne.
Did anyone have any questions? We need a little bit of briefing on it. All right, you were there?
I wasn't in person, but I was online. Hi, Ramsey.
Hi, Erica.
I mean, I do have a few questions. I think that one starting question, I think, or just comment that I have is my takeaway, so if I am incorrect, please do correct me. But one of my takeaways from the presentation yesterday is that the recommendation from DEM is that basically it's gonna drive individual wastewater systems as a solution for our county. And maybe I should just ask, is that the recommendation that's coming from DEM from this study?
I don't think we came to any recommendation. The intent for the presentation yesterday is to start engaging the public, and we got 2 public engagements coming up next month. I'll have Carrie talks about the timing of these meetings, but the intent is no. To answer your question, no, we don't come to a recommendation of determining IWSs versus connection because we haven't done this complete study yet. Some of the areas would require connection because they're going to be within the sewer service area. Some may be decentralized system if the community is willing to create a district. Some could be IWSs, but the intent of the study is to drive that discussion and also potentially come up with policies and procedures that we as a county could start implementing as a roadmap for the future. So that's the intent. And to create that roadmap and policies and procedures requires everyone's involvement. So that's Carrie, if you want to mention the dates of the upcoming meetings to get the public. And
Yeah.
Erica, that was a draft just to get the communication going, so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I wanted, and that's why I actually started with that question, just because, I mean, the 3 of us have had exhausting conversations about this, and so I just wanted to make sure that I didn't misunderstand or I wasn't confused in what direction hopefully we're going in, just because I think that that question in itself is so important because of the role our coral reefs play, the importance of our groundwater, looking at Florida as an example, driving individual wastewater systems forward, and then historically having to transition them to collection systems. I guess that is there a component of this research that is going to look beyond just current county owned systems, but look at the potential of connecting communities that are nearby private systems? And
Yes,
having.
The idea, I'll have Carrie talk more about it, but the intent is to identify all the private systems and if there's policies, legislation, resolutions, bills need to be driven to change the current law. The current law allows connection to municipalities only. So we need to work with the state. It's going to take legislative action to change the current law to allow connection to private wastewater systems. And that also is going to be discussed and is going to be laid out in the report as we dig deep into it. But the report is not going to give you a solution for every possible scenario, but it's going to trigger the discussion of policies and procedures. So, because it's not going to go into the details of engineering details. And so it's just going to be a document, a roadmap, where you could enter your address and it kind of give you your option. It could be, if it's already determined that you're so far away from any system, you don't have to wait on us. You could do IWS because you're so far away and it's impossible to get to you. So we don't have to hold up our constituents to conversion, because as you guys heard yesterday, it takes about 2,000 conversion per year starting today to stay in compliance by 2050 for the county of Hawaii. So our intent to get the education out there, work with our constituents to create an ease of transition for them, rather than wait to the 11:30 and everybody would be like panicking and say, God, how am I gonna finish 48,000 plus cesspool conversion? By 250, if we wait till the end of that period, because we only got 26 years. And like I said, within that 26 years remaining, we have to start doing 2,000 conversion per year to meet that deadline. Carrie, I mean, you can.
Well, I was
Yeah.
gonna, this is Georgine, a little
Georgine,
history.
could we have Carrie finish the topic, please? Because
Okay.
she was gonna say something, and if you don't mind, go ahead, Carrie.
Sure. Thanks, Ramsey. Thanks, Erica, for that question. So as Ramsey mentioned, this integrated wastewater management plan will act as a roadmap. It will go over, there are 3 solutions, right? The individual wastewater systems, decentralized or cluster systems, and connecting to the county system. 3 ways for people to convert their cesspools. And it just is not feasible for the county to connect all cesspools to their system. So individual systems have to remain as one of the solutions. So it is a plan, it's not research, so it will act as a roadmap for homeowners to have some guidance as to what the county is thinking for extending their sewer system, as well as, potential areas for decentralized or cluster systems. And the county can only do what they can, what's within their purview. So connecting to private systems, it's just a conversation starter. So there's many more conversations to be had around those types of conversions.
Thank you,
What I
Carrie.
was
Go ahead.
going to pipe in on is that the EMC has provided guidance to DEM on what we expect to see in an integrated wastewater management plan. And from what I've reviewed against the different components, you're doing it, great. But we, in that recommendation, we're supportive of private-public partnerships, of being able to use what works for the place you're dealing with. So having that flexibility, I think you've already gotten the official EMC input, go for it. And if you've got specific legislation that you would like us to also support, that would recommend changes to the law to allow private wastewater treatment, is a perfectly fine option that we want to make sure happens as much as it is possible. The whole idea is to have sustainable systems, whatever people are deciding works best for them. So I think we've got the flexibility that we've already provided to DEM on that regard. And if you'd like to go back through, we could send out that list of the things that ought to be part of an integrated wastewater management plan. But part of that is also it's evergreen. You're constantly updating and adding in detail as it matures and evolves. And you're not going to have it all laid out. My understanding is that the state legislation said you will have an integrated wastewater management plan for every county. Well, it's not as detailed now, but it is focusing down on how we're going to do it and the process and the considerations. And I really like the way it's been laid out, that it is recognizing we've got to be flexible and we got to hurry up. So anywhere you think you want to bounce it off of us for something that isn't already included in that guidance we provided, just let us know and we'll beat on it.
No, thank you. I think your input and public input is very, very important as we move and finalize that. I keep hearing, the Hawaii administrative rule for the state is hard to change and it takes forever, but we need to get started. If there is potential for our constituents or any constituents within the state, nearby private waste treatment plant, they need to have the option to be able to connect. I mean, to me, it's no brainer because why would you go on septic if your next door neighbor is connected to a private system? So whatever it takes from legislative action, we need to lobby with the state elected official to drive that. And Erica, I think your organization would be great for that. So maybe we could nominate the Coral Reef to start lobbying for this.
Yeah, I mean, I fully support that, and then the other bills that the Accessible Conversion Working Group spent 4 years putting together to recommend. And I mean, I think that we've discussed a lot of the potential of public-private partnerships in many different ways and what that looks like, or opportunities to change current standings of county or state regulation in order to allow those to take place. And I am in full support of moving that or proposing that move forward. And that's all in hopes of addressing the cost and ownership of these recommendations that we're putting forward. And you know, putting recommendations forward is challenging on its own. And then dealing with the ownership of those recommendations and the actual cost of who those then trickle down to. It's worrisome if we put all of those costs and those burdens on the homeowners of Hawaii. You know, Hawaii County has the most cesspools across the state, just as, you know, Kari went over yesterday. And there's huge opportunity here to think of cesspool transition not as singular households, but as community sections. And we do have, I mean, 80% of our county's wastewater is not sewage. So that means 20% of Hawaii County's wastewater is actually sewage. Of that 20%, Hawaii County has municipalities of what, 2? We're moving to, is it 2, Ramsey? Is it Hilo and Kona?
Well, we have 6 waste treatment facility plans on the island.
Okay,
And you're right. Even though we have 6 waste treatment plants, they all being underutilized and under capacity because it's just we're not allowing for connection as we plan forward. But with this document, hopefully it could set up the stage for future development within a service area that they must connect. So for us to be able to increase our customer base, we just need to be proactive during the planning process. Otherwise, we're going to continue with the same road that it has been got us here. We literally outpriced ourselves for sewer waste treatment. It is expensive. You've seen the number yesterday. We're talking about $14 billion to sewer the entire island. That's a lot of money.
and I appreciate you and Kari and everything that I mean, it's an uphill battle in trying to put all of this together and trying to map it out. I mean, after doing so much extensive research in Pu'uko regarding all of these different components of wastewater transition, it really, in my regard, often comes down to cost and ownership of these recommendations and who's going to be the barrier, or not the barrier, but the carrier to move those things forward. It's a hard thing, and I appreciate you guys trying to tackle it.
And I think you hit it right on. Pu'uko is going to be the example of how the county got involved to bridge over the communication between the private and the community, and it's working. American Water committed to allow for connection. The community set up their own task force and they moving forward with laying out the financial option. Even Carrie, our engineer, through ACOM, and Corolla has been working with the community as well, as part of assisting that community to connect to American Water. So I think that's coming to fruition. I talked to Barbara yesterday prior to that presentation because she did submit testimony. And she is a member of that task force. So we start seeing the light through the tunnel. It's coming to fruition. We've been working on it, Erica, as you know, since we start your report laid out the ground rule of the options. And I think one of the best option and more feasible option is to connect to the nearby private waste treatment plant. So, and that's moving forward. So something to look at as becoming the model for the entire county.
And I would say to you, Erica, as a member now of the EMC, if there are things that you want to bring here as proposals or things that you think the weight of EMC has to advocate and support finding solutions, do it. We're more than happy. I'll get you on the agenda. You can have a forum here to help DEM get things done.
Well, I'm in full support of finding avenues that the private industry can support our county in moving these things forward in a more expedited fashion.
And I assume
Yeah.
other counties have the same issues,
No,
just at scale. Our scale, we've got so many cesspools that we're unique as usual.
yes.
Okay. So you wanted to give out the dates for the public meetings?
Yeah, Carrie could do that.
Sure, it's on slide 26 from yesterday's presentation. The first round of outreach will be, there's February 13th in Kona at the Pavilion from 5 to 6:30 p.m. February 15th on the Hilo side at Aunt Sally's from 5 to 6:30 p.m. And then February 27th at the Na'alehu Community Center from 5 to 6:30 p.m. And February 28th at the Kohala Intergenerational Center from 5 to 6:30 p.m.
And that also is going to be on our website. You all know that we DM branched out to have our own website because in the past we used to be linked to the county and it's hard to navigate through the department website, but now we have our own DM website. So information will be shared as well on that.
Well, and I would also encourage the commissioners, if you can attend in your district, to hear what the concerns are and again, think of ideas of, well, what is it, could this commission help with? Would appreciate you giving your time to that. Are there any other questions for all?
I have a quick,
Gonzalo.
so, I imagine it's variable data depending on which district, but are there like maps of where these facilities, the public and private facilities are, trunk lines, laterals, et cetera, by district or just across Hawaii? Because I'm trying to better understand for District 7 how big of a bite this is. When I moved in here, I had to convert my cesspool over to septic. If I knew where a trunk line was, I would have been more than happy to tie in, and maybe there's others in a comparable position. So it would be just really useful to have some, maps or something like that to understand how big a bite it is within each district.
I think the short answer is not yet. There are maps of all the different sort of aspects, from locations of the current cesspools to the locations of the current county service areas to the locations of the private systems, but our plan will integrate those maps and help to put them together. So we're working on it. Right now, all that information is kind of spread out between like county databases, Department of Health databases, and whatnot. So we're working to integrate that. So stay tuned.
Yeah,
Okay,
just
no.
to let you know, just to give you an FYI of how the state of Hawaii works when it comes to wastewater, different than any other states I've seen, at least from my experience. Because you mentioned the trunk line. So here is, number one, the county of Hawaii, we don't even charge connection fees. Keep that in mind. Private systems is run and administered by Department of Health, not the county. So sometimes we don't even have access to the data unless we get into their database and try to get the information. So, and that creates a lot of challenges because the state administer that, not the individual county. Even the septic tank conversion, it's a state driven. The state issue the permit, not the county. So I just want to make sure that's clear because I know, to some other people may think the county oversees all of that, but in reality, Department of Health does oversee that. But it oversees, once we build our treatment plant, our collection, then it become county. If anybody within that service area need to connect, they have to come to the county, not the state. But any private entity wanted to install any type of wastewater system, they have to work with the state. Just to give you an idea, I know Gonzalo, you asked the question and maybe that could clarify some of that. But it's great, great question. Are you willing to connect? I want to hear from every developer, everybody on the island that, where's the trunk line? Let's get it in, let's connect, let's have a sewer service rather than doing septic. If you have nearby sewer line, right? It kind of
Yeah,
makes
no, it makes sense. And, to me, it's a facilitating and enabling tool for planners. Whether they're private planners, construction developers, et cetera.
right.
Without that mapping, we're kind of in the dark.
Yeah, and like Carrie said, we're gonna work with multiple entities and agencies, try to bring that mapping into our GIS. Hopefully will be successful. Most of these resorts, I don't know, it's because the only collection line you're gonna see, it's within their facility, doesn't go outside that resort area. So we may end up getting challenged and getting that data, but we're gonna continue searching.
Jim Beats has a question.
Two, actually.
Two questions.
First for Carrie. Carrie, what's the expected timeline or completion date for your maps?
Yeah, so the draft integrated wastewater management plan will be issued to the Department of the Environmental Management by the end of this year, 2024. The draft cesspool conversion plan, that will be issued to DEM in March 2024.
Just a quick follow-up to that, Carrie, that's this. Will the draft maps be available before? You said they will be available in March. Is that what you said?
Sorry, yeah, I should have answered more linearly. So the draft maps will be in the draft cesspool conversion plan. And that will be ready March 2024.
Is there any way to uncouple those?
What do you mean?
I want to
Well-
reiterate draft because there's also the public engagement that will be conducted.
I've seen several different RTIS maps for the state and the county and districts, et cetera, that have various amounts of data in them. And it would be a great opportunity to get input from all those different sources, just to follow up on. So that's the only reason I asked that question. And I'll leave it as a statement. So, so
I just want to reiterate draft because we need to make sure that we have time to iterate with county staff. We don't want to put anything out there that's inaccurate. So we need time to make sure we, QAQC that with staff.
okay, there's lots of inaccurate things out there, so I don't
We don't
mind
want that. Yeah.
Appreciate that. So my second question was actually to Ramsey, and I believe I understood what you said in that all permits for conversion require state, but are you informed on all of those permit applications?
No, we're not. The county, the only time county get informed is through probably the Department of Public Work when they get a home improvement permit to add a bedroom or to modify current existing housing. Then the Department of Health requires the conversion prior to any improvement. And I would imagine that goes through the Department of Public Work, but our department does not get notified of these conversion. We, like Carrie said, we need to log into the Department of Health database site and see if they even have the latest and greatest. We know the Department of Health lacking staff as well. And whatever data they have, that's what we're gonna depend on.
Goodness, I would say I'm surprised, but I know that in many states, Florida being one, is that when you apply, you're actually doing an application that's concurrent with districts as well as state. So maybe we ought to pursue that if that doesn't exist, or make it a recommendation for this commission.
So I would support that recommendation. I don't know how things work, but I would totally support that recommendation. In regards of kind of like future development, is there, I know that the planning department is also looking at development codes and planning of how communities are built out and seeing across the state or across our county how much development is taking place. Is there collaboration between the planning department as they look at these development codes that are basically impacting exactly what you folks at DEM are trying to now, deal with in this current timeline? How, is there currently collaboration taking place? And if there is not, or if there is, how can that, be supported in order to not continue this way of development into the future where we're relying on homeowners to cover multi-billion-dollar projects and manage wastewater, which is something that I receive a continual remark to from community members and other folks that constituents very much think that this is a government responsibility, whatever hand of the government that be. It might be confusing, but very much a government responsibility and not individual homeowners to correct community problems.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Carrie.
Oh, thanks, Erica. That's a good question. So at the end of yesterday's presentation, we did have a slide in there that included, what is and isn't included in this integrated wastewater management plan. I think what you're speaking to are kind of the policies that would follow, and there's a lot of work that needs to be done in that area. Whether it's changes to building codes, whether it's new bills proposed to legislature, what have you. So there's a lot of work to do there. That's not all going to be done in this plan. There may be recommendations for policies or rules to be changed in this plan, but we're not going to be able to make those changes. As far as coordination with planning, I believe the county is in the midst of updating its general plan. And so
Yeah,
we have in project,
Our other agenda, so we'll be talking.
Well, I'm
about the
actually
general
not
plan.
speaking about the general plan. I'm literally talking about community development plans. Like the actual community development plans of how community, I don't have it with me. I can find it. It's separate from the master plan.
Right, there's two things, right? There's the general plan that also considering the current community development plan, so they go hand in hand, and the planning department has been doing a lot of public engagement, and once again, you guys as a commissioners, as public, our constituents, you guys, it's your opportunity to participate in these planning meetings. They have half a dozen a meeting, if I recall. I know I attended 3 to 4 of them at least. And I think it's very important to start voicing out what you guys want. But when I go to these meetings, and that's the reason the planning does these meetings, is they want to hear what the public have to say, what their preferences. But when nobody shows up to voice these type of plan, then you cannot just expect change without fighting for that change, because it's not going to happen on its own. So from as far as developers, usually when somebody submitted in for development, go through a zone change or go through planning department for a big project, they run it through every department within the county. And we are involved in seeing the process for a new development. But as you know, and we talked about it a lot, the current state laws allow you to do septic tanks for less than 50 lots. So, I mean, unless that is changed, we cannot continue talking about it.
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
laws
I-
need to change to be able to enforce what you guys' vision is. And if anybody comes in and say, I'm gonna put 49 homes, by de facto, Department of Health, the one who's gonna approve it, not the county, because it's a state law.
So I think a list of, I mean, I've attended those community meetings and stuff for those opportunities to be able to participate. And I definitely encourage the communities that I work with. One thing that I have noticed is that sometimes because it's so complex, they don't know how to recommend or what is needed to be changed. They just, like, people just know at the end road what they want. They want clean water, they want improved, they want the end goal, but how they get there is also a little confusing to community members, because we don't know the regulations and the laws and the specifics of that law that you just, said, Ramsey, of the 50 lot build out. Those things, community, I don't think can come to the table with saying this is what needs to specifically be changed. I think that that's like the give and take of all coming together and like looking at that in gold and trying to figure out who plays what role in order to collectively get the collective there.
Yeah, and it's gonna take a state level change, so it's gonna require every county, and I know during the CISPOL committee, these issues surfaced, but if we don't get every county on board to pressure the state, because it's state mandated change, or unless state elected official willing to take that on and change the law or propose a new change to the Hawaii administrative rules, that's gonna continue. It's
I would like if we could, just to keep the meeting moving along, to go back and think about what are the list of things in the, specifically as we're talking about the successful conversion work group, identified barriers. You're running into barriers that require state law change. Just get them on a list. If you could pull that together, Erica, I think that would be great. And say, these are the things that are state law, and we're gonna have to by process, and I'll let these two at the end of the table tell us protocol, but as EMC for this Hawaii County, our job is, well, we can make some comments to council, but council has to be pushing on state to get changes. Is that correct?
Yeah.
That's
That's my understanding.
So I think, we need to start lining that up, and we can write letters and try to move that. But maybe if you could take a whack at it and get some input from Carrie and Ramsey on what are the state law changes that you need, and maybe we can start leaning on our representatives. The other thing I wanted to comment on is that I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sherry, about sunshine. Each of us can go to these public meetings for planning or for DEM as representatives of our district, but not as EMC representatives, okay? So, and as individuals, you're welcome to go, but please do find out what your constituents care about. And maybe talk about, well, that's something maybe I could bring up to the EMC, but don't talk like you are EMC. Is that fair?
Yeah, that is correct.
Yeah.
The quick question on that, and thanks again for your presentation, it was fabulous. And that is, if we go to a public meeting, but we're asked a question because they know we're members, commissioners, can we answer?
You can answer, but not in the capacity as you're speaking on behalf of EMC.
But as, a knowledgeable citizen that is also a commissioner, then we can make a statement.
If
Right.
that is what you want to do, but
Is
with
it-
the clear understanding that you're not speaking on behalf of EMC, you're speaking for yourself, and you can acknowledge that you are a commissioner on EMC, but it's not that you are speaking on behalf of the commission, because the commission has to take a position and issue some kind of statement as a whole during one of these meetings that we have. But if you attend a community meeting or a planning meeting or whatever it may be, then yes, you're free to speak, just not, I'm saying this is
Right,
EMC's
right.
position and this is what we're trying to do. That is not permissible.
Thank you for that clarification.
You're welcome.
All the hoops. Anything else we want to ask of Carrie at this time? Okay, getting back then to the agenda. Is Rick Anthony on? He is, okay. We had postponed, I hope you're feeling well. The presentation from last meeting. And Laura Ocasio had invited Rick to make a presentation to the group about achieving zero waste in Hawaii County. So Laura, if you want to take over the baton.
Yes, mahalo for being here, Rick Anthony, it's an honor. And there is an extensive history of involvement. Rick has been involved in helping to develop our zero waste policy here for Hawaii Island, and he will give more information about that, but just it's an informative opportunity for us and for the public. Thank you for being here.
Okay, it's my turn now.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank
Yeah,
you for
hi, aloha. I'm glad to be in front of this committee. I've spent a good period of my life on the Big Island working for you or with you. Started in about 2008 when Mayor Kanoi was seriously looking at a waste to energy plant, and he had Dr. Weatherford go out and look at what the possibilities were, and Weatherford ran into Dr. Seldman and myself, and we said, you know, there might be a better way to do this than burning it. And Bobby, I don't know what his last name, he was a council member who had some had designated money towards him, and he said, I'll put up $25,000 if Rick and Neil can bring a team to the island and talk to us. And that's what we did. There was a big meeting with the HEIDB at a big, I don't know, one of the big hotels on the Kona side. And then we went with our team, and we had a composter and Dr. Paul Connett, who is a chemical engineer, and a bunch of staff. And we had meetings around the island. First meeting was in the mayor's office in Kona. Interesting. I was looking for some good Kona coffee, and I found Maxwell House in there. I just didn't know what was going on, but we had a good meeting, had about 25, 30 people show. And then we were in the Bay, and then Volcano, and then Palma, and then Hilo. Met in that old hotel near the Hilo Hawaiian. And bottom line is that there was improvements because there was community meetings. They were looking at improvements at the transfer stations. There wasn't any really representatives from the condos or the business, but we came up with some recommendations. And the bottom line is what we said at the end was that to get this done completely, we have to change some of the rules. And one of the rules would be mandatory source separation, including the businesses in downtown Hilo and Kona, the condos, to be part of this. And we got a 5-0 vote, or whatever, I think it was 5-0 from the council board to go ahead and do this. And as I think her name was Linda, she took over the transfer stations. That was her job, and they made some amazing changes, and the economy fell. 2009, those of you who are around remember that some of the bigger banks failed, and there was no business going on for 3 or 4 months, and the council had decided they had other priorities, so they never went through that part of it. About 2015, Hanoi again was looking at waste energy, and Angela Kane got very upset. So 3 or 4 of us who loved the Big Island anyhow, and Captain Charlie Moore, who had a home in Waimea, he's the one who came up with the marine debris and talking about plastic in the ocean. And so we put together a workshop and invited the other islands to come and talked basically on composting. And about 2 weeks before the meeting, the mayor decided that he didn't want a burner. He wanted to go with anaerobic digestion, which is at the last resort, it's not a bad idea. I wanted to say that during that first round in 2008 and 9, we got hired by the Hawaii Island Economic Development Board, and primarily was to look at the possibility of organics to being composted and used. You know, the island's a lava bed. They were importing soils from Seattle at a couple $100 a ton. Why not make our own compost? And a part of my job was to find out what was available. And what was amazing to me is none of the grocery stores were putting out any organics. When we went to the packing houses, you could see the lines of farmers behind picking up the coals. And the reason is, you know, as a lava-based island, there's not a lot of soil. So any kind of organic that you could put in the ground and make that work, that's pretty much it. You know, I don't have to tell you, the Big Island 1,000 years ago was the feeding island for the entire chain. And, you know, everything you see about it, you know, that can happen today. You know, one of the things we noticed is nobody's going to starve on the Big Island. We're just going to go across the park and get a papaya and a banana, and we'll be on our way. Some macadamia nuts, and we'll be on our way. But the Hawaii, the study that we had was that we needed to actually build a culture of composting on the island. We've tried to work with the universities to train a couple of students, and one of them dropped out, but the other one turned out to be a really good composter. And I do believe he's in the business, although he may be specializing just in Pakalolo or whatever. But the fact is that the farmers want this stuff. they need it, and there should be something about it. Again, when the economy failed, we did write a curriculum for the development board on how we could train people coming back from the military to work on these ideas to get to zero waste. Rather than getting that contract, they gave it to some local nonprofit, which I don't think much happened. Well, back in 2015, the waste energy thing popped up again, and so Charlie and Paul and Ruth Abby and myself came down, put on a workshop, had lots of islands there. They canceled his idea, wanted to go with anaerobic digester, which one of the things we found when we did the first round was that hog guts, because of all the hundreds and hundreds of feral pigs and slaughtering of pigs for ribs. There was a lot of offal around, and a digester would be a good idea. Actually, a digester is also part of your sewer treatment, if you didn't know. The other part was, think about that. The big issue in sewer treatment is what do you do with the sludges, the wastewater sludges afterwards? And if there's no metals or heavy metals in it, it's a terrific component to your agriculture. It adds a lot of nitrogen to the soil. Let's see, it was about, when did she do this? About last year, Christine. It's funny, when I got to the island, Christine was just a reporter, and she invited my wife and I to go out to lunch, and lunch was at a park, but she had a big banana leaf and lots of local poi and other food, and it was a real welcome to the island. She asked Neil and I to update the plan based on the fact that times have changed and we are out of COVID, and we're still looking at it. And I think we came up with some interesting recommendations. I want to point out that the landfill itself is a polluter. It pollutes the groundwater, and no matter how tight that one is in Kona and how new it is, it's still generating methane from the landfill. Even if they have a gas collection system, they can only get about 20 to 30%. In fact, 16% of the methane that's going into the atmosphere that's causing global warming is coming from landfills, to the point where the UN said to all the countries in the world, stop landfilling, don't do it. Go to zero waste. In fact, I was in New York on the 31st at the United Nations as the chair of the Zero Waste International Alliance. And we spoke to 31st, the First Lady of Turkey basically asked the UN to declare the 31st of March to be a zero waste day. And we had a little panel and we talked to the entire delegation. It was pretty amazing. And bottom line, part of it, part of my presentation about zero waste, which is the responsible production, consumption, reuse, and recovery of products and packages and materials without burning, and no discards to air, water, and land, was the way we ought to go about it. And one of the main points is that we have to change the way we handle our discards, and that means required source separation. That's the answer for Hawaii as far as I'm concerned. That's a missing piece on this new plan. They gave me, okay, Rick, deal with the multifamily and the businesses. And it's interesting that I was speaking at doing an introduction to zero waste lecture in the WasteCon in Vegas, and one of the guys in the audience was a vice president of Western Waste. And I said, well, I've been looking for you for 5 years, my God. And he was interested in the MRF prospect. They wanted to do it. The key was, that people had to be, you can't just set up a system and guess if people are going to participate. You have to require people to participate so that the system will work. I also talked to, what was his name? Nick, who also is one of the other collectors in here, and he would be glad to set up a source separation system in his condos and business pickups. Now, it doesn't have to be a single stream, which is all recyclables mixed together. It could be a dual stream where you separate the paper from the glass and the metal, or you can do more. Back in the 70s and 80s, when we started recycling, we picked up newspaper in one bin and glass in another bin, and cans, aluminum cans together with metal cans in the third bin, because a magnet could take it out. So, local ordinances, I think is really important. We also wanted to, we want to turn and they're doing it now, but the idea is to take the transfer stations and turn them into local parks, where you can get education and information. I know when I was there, you could redeem your bottles and cans for the Hawai'i 5, and I think that's all good. I think other deposits in California, we just added wine and liquor bottles to our deposit system. And I heard they had something like $600 million in their account. And the key is though to make sure that the people who are doing the work are recovered. So turn the transfer stations into educational kiosks and your shop and drop. I talk to people around the world about what's happening on the Big Island in terms of the shop and drop, because what I found out is most of that stuff doesn't stay on the shelf for more than 3 or 4 days while people are taking it. And that's really the reuse economy that we're talking about. Thirdly, training. We have people who are running our systems who have not been trained in resource management. It's just the way it is. I taught classes at community college in resource management, and it was amazing how many people showed up. Now, this was 2009, and we were recruiting from the unemployment office. But the fact is the typical administrator for a program is actually trained in wastewater management, pretty much, somewhat on energy conversion or energy, and then nothing really on resource management. And it's really a big deal because with a little change in the rules, you're going to have commodities flowing that are going to be ready to support businesses. So training is really important. We're working on in San Diego. There's about 6 counties now that have this, but it's called a wasting fee, and it's another $10. It's $10 on the black bin, and that goes to a regional education, waste reduction, and toxic programs throughout the area. It comes out to the individual about 35 cents a year because you generate less than a ton a year, and it's going to be $10 a ton. I just want to make an aside, and I don't know if you're still doing it, but you were given business services, $80 a ton, whatever the avoided cost was to remove the mixed recyclables and cardboard and send them to Portland I'm almost done, send them to Portland where they could be sorted. Well, when I was there the second time, they stopped. They were just doing cardboard. It seems to me that anybody that was moving materials, whether they were taking the glass and using the glass for an aggregate or even a small glass plant to make bottles, they should get that subsidy as well. I mean, if you're budgeting $80 a ton for landfilling, they ought to spread it around so that that's an incentive, especially on the organic side, to get these businesses to work out an $80 or whatever the shipping fee is, should be there. Oh, and then finally, I want to say 2 things. One, I think the idea of local businesses is fine. I think the transfer stations and the MRFs can be sources of feedstock to local industries that are making things out of products. If you're around on the 28th of February, Zero Waste San Diego will do our 11th annual symposium. It's virtual as well as live. And this time, Laura, my daughter who runs it, focused on reuse. And we probably have 20 different small businesses that are taking stuff that would have otherwise gone to the landfill and turning it into products and businesses. So this is adding to your local wealth. It's also creating businesses and some independence. And finally, under the Investment Act, there's billions of dollars right now available for these kinds of projects. A serious effort in going after some federal money from EPA. I know Christine will tell you, I think you just got one. I heard she landed something about a month ago. But it's out there, there's funding out there, you can do this. I would say that My experience on this island was that the majority of the people I talked to, my good buddy has a coffer farm, weather firm is raising cattle. Local people there that came to our meetings, all are willing to participate in sorting the materials. They love the island, they love the atmosphere, and they love the idea of protecting the environment. I don't know if I had more time, I can keep going talking forever, but let's stop here and see if I have any questions or comments.
Other
Wow,
questions for,
wow,
Yeah.
so,
I guess just a question that you brought up the sludge for compost. I had just recently went to a presentation put on by, it was the Environmental Caucus of the Democratic Party. They had some guest speakers, and talking about that oftentimes the sludge has, is now loaded with PFAS and PFOS. And then also, I still haven't gotten a lot of clarification about our polymer that's added, but if I'm not incorrect, our county adds polymer to the sludge. And so that would be something to address in terms of if we were to use that as any kind of resource recovery and diversion, that would become an issue kind of immediately for farmers because we're adding polymer and or it has already contains the PFOS from other sources.
yeah, PFAS is a new one, that's a protection, and it's a terrible thing. And, you know, the whole plastic industry is a real cause for concern, what's going on in terms of just population. I'm not a chemist, and so Paul Connett would tell you though, and maybe the heat of the compost will typically burns off most of the organic additives, and so PFAS would be in there. But the best thing is just to ban PFAS and not let them, you know, spray that on our containers and our receipts and wherever it shows up in our environment. That's why I say the 35 cents a piece for a regional waste reduction education program could let people know what's out there and how it's going to harm them and what they can do to stop it. And you know, the major power we have in this country is that if we don't buy the stuff, they go out of business. So we should think about that. If they make products that don't have any end use or have toxic materials that end up in the environment, then we should boycott them.
A quick question, Rick, doesn't the EPA require sludge treatment before it can be used in agricultural compost?
They grade it. So it's there, it's a grade A, grade B and C. So a clean compost that doesn't have any heavy metal and meets the EPA requirement is okay for land application. If it has the heavy metals, then that's a problem. And there's lots of incidences of putting on just sludge that hasn't been checked out on soils and caused a lot of damage. But when we ran the San Diego we built their resource recovery system so successful that the county sold the landfills. I can't even get into it, and the whole system to Allied for $300 million cash. We'll mail you the check by Friday, and they did. The issue is that we can control this. We don't have to give it away. It should be public ownership. You have the power to make the adjustments. I don't know if I answered your question.
You did, thank you.
are there any other questions? Let's see.
So I'm curious, I have some questions. Where you guys going from here? Are you going to recommend the city council to do something? Have you guys looked at the updated zero waste plans?
We are in the process of trying to implement our integrated solid waste management plan that we issued in 2019. And there are several components and recommendations in there, including to look at expanding the reuse centers and the transfer stations. And improving how we divert waste. And in fact, the committee just recently sent to our council encouragement to look at banning the landfill of recyclable materials. And that there would have, at least I wrote up a draft bill that would look at what can we recycle now, who can cost effectively participate in recycling, the resorts, for example, here, and businesses, to have to find a way to divert resources, basically, instead of taking it all to our landfill. So we're just in the beginning of that process that we'll be working with the council on how to develop those kinds of actions. So they're a whole series, and we're plugging through and discussing how to move forward. The biggest issue that is different, I think, of this island is just we don't have an industrial base. We don't have a lot of users of the recovered material here on this island. So it's a much bigger circle in the circular economy, the world, which drives the cost crazy. We allow residents, for example, to throw away their waste for free. Well, it's kind of hidden in their property tax. To say we're going to throw $10 charge on you for every bin of waste you have, we'll probably get some pushback. So there are a lot of political, cultural hurdles that we need to do, but we're working on them. So I at least would hope that everybody feels like we're not doing nothing. We are looking at how can we pace it and how can we manage it as an island, as a county within a state in the middle of the Pacific.
In addition, Commissioner Garcia and I are also working on a zero waste ordinance or opportunity, because it may or may not end up being an ordinance if it doesn't need to be, for film industry and construction, repurposing within the film industry for permits, and require it in as part of the permit so that they can budget it in to the whole production.
Well, two things to watch out is in California, and we have rural areas too that have to be complied. So one is the current mandate that no compostable organics will go to landfill. And part of that is the capturing of the edible food. And my company, one of the things we've been doing with the cities is identifying the big generators of edible food and tying them with the pantries. With the conversion of organics out of the landfill, you solve the leachate problem and you solve the methane problem, but you also create a whole new industry of making compost. And I know that you need that stuff on the island. The other one was SB 54, which we tried to get bills to maintain plastic, and we get beat by them downtown Sacramento. So we put together an initiative and got the signatures, and we're rolling until the very last day of the meetings, and the industry came forward and said, we'll do everything in SB 54, but we don't want it to be a law. We don't want it to be the way the initiative is, which has the government running it. We want to run it ourselves, producer responsibility organizations. Some of us more radical said that ain't going to work, but the fact is they all signed on, and the governor signed it into law. And CAW, the lobbyist group, pulled it from the ballot. Now, today, we're looking at the rulemaking, and you might just take a watch out on what's going on 54, because that's plastic. And in my 50 years in this business, in the first 5 years, there wasn't that kind of plastic out there. Today, maybe if you look at plastic in the composition, it was like 2-3%. Today, it's a good 10-15%, and that's amazing when you figure out how light that stuff is. So these are the two good things to watch for. that you could apply, especially I think the banning of organics from the landfill. I think you do that, in my mind, for the environment, that you recognize the landfill is producing methane and that's causing global warming. And because of that, you're going to divert it, and byproduct is going to be, you're going to make good, healthy soil to use on the farms throughout the island.
Okay, I think I'm gonna have to wrap up this session. Thank you very much for your information. I think he's got plenty of stuff online if you wanted to check out what's happening with the California Resource Recovery Association and the zero waste report has a lot of good information and for everybody. So thank you very much.
Thank
Rick?
It's at zwia.org, and that's our website for all the international groups. We now have 25 affiliates on the international group, and just a aside finally is that Rossano Ergolini picked up on this one in Italy, and there's now over 100 cities in Italy that are over 80% in terms of diversion. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you, and
Could you speak your website? You cut off before we heard it.
zwia.org, Zero Waste International Alliance. The CRRA is good, but the ZWIA is better, especially because it's focused on zero waste.
All right, thank you very much. Aloha.
Aloha, thank you, mahalo.
Thank you.
It's
GWIA.org.
okay, it'll be in the minutes. All right, moving right along. Item 5.2 is the never-ending wastewater code and rules update. Is Chris on board? Chris Lowe? No, so I'm assuming we'll defer that. I haven't seen anything new. Unless Ramsey's there to say something. Still working on.
Georgie, and I think they still working on it.
Sure, so
I don't know if Chris signed up.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure that you have to open the testimony.
Oh, do we have testimony, public testimony would like to speak on item 5.2? Which is wastewater code and rules update. Stuart, did you want to make comment?
Yes, regarding, my name is Stuart Coleman. I'm the Executive Director of Hawai'i Wastewater Alternatives and Innovations, and I've worked with Laura and Erica for a long time as part of the plastics movement, and then also as the cesspool conversion working group. And I just wanted to mention two things that kind of tie these two issues together that we were just discussing. One is in terms of recycling.
Wait, time out to I'm getting advice from council here. What?
He just needs to identify what agenda item he's giving public testimony, and he'll have 3 minutes.
Okay, so what I'm told, you need to state which agenda item you're giving testimony on. And I'm assuming it's Roman numeral 5.2, which was our wastewater code and rules update. Or is it something else?
Yes, it can be related to that.
Okay, 3 minutes, go.
Thank you so much. So the one thing in terms of sludge waste that we were talking about before, and the issue of contaminants with PFAS and PFOS and others, pyrolysis, which is high heat, low oxygen. There's a new technology that removes up to 98% of those contaminants, and then all other contaminants, and it produces biochar. So this is not only removing those contaminants, it's avoiding trucking sludge to the landfill, which the former speaker was talking about how dangerous that is. And our landfills are already full, and they can be leaching those chemicals into the groundwater. But it also, the great thing about it is it's a carbon sink, it's a soil amendment, and it can be a fire retardant. So you can also mix it in with invasive grasses, which are a big problem across Hawaii Island. And you can replace those very, very flammable invasives with, with something that is good for the earth and doesn't have contaminants and can be a fire retardant. So that's, I think, super important. The other thing regarding recycling is with glass, we're basically losing money shipping glass every time because we can't do anything with it here. There are efforts in Maui County to crush that glass to levels that we need for individual wastewater systems for leach fields. It's C33 size sand, which we don't really have much of. And we need that. We need the quarries to produce it, but then crushing the glass could be a huge thing with the 48,000 cesspools that need to be converted because it's a great filtration system for these leach fields.
Okay, thank you very much for your testimony.
Thank you.
Moving right along, since we don't have anybody from DEM to speak to the rulemaking on wastewater. The third item on the agenda is recommendations to the September 2023 draft of the general plan. We were asked to look at the general plan draft, sections 3.5 on wastewater treatment and reuse, and 4.3 on solid waste management. This was postponed from earlier meetings. And as part of the package, and Peter had sent out the couple of comments that he received, and digging through here. And whether anyone has additional recommendations to consider. I know we were talking about maybe putting that up on the screen and could edit or comment as you wish. And also just a reminder, as individuals, you are more than welcome to comment on the general plan. The Planning Commission is soliciting public input until, I believe, March 1st of this year. So you can go in there and put your own things in. The question was whether EMC as a body wanted to provide specific commentary. I think we talked last time about there's reference in there about the West Hawaii sanitary landfill lasting 100 years. Yeah, well, forget that. So either strike that or put some new language in that says it will, I guess it's stated this is reason. Anyway, we're well below that. The last time when we submitted the recommendation to council on banning recycles to the landfill, Ramsey had told us 20 to 25 years at the rate we are filling it up. If DEM is not wanting to specifically use that number, we could certainly say, just say significantly here. In the not too distant future, our landfill will be overwhelmed.
Is there a reason that they don't want to use that number? If that's,
I don't know, is Ramsey still on?
Yes, I'm still here.
Do you want us to make comment on the general plan saying 20 to 25 years is the estimated lifetime of our one and only landfill?
I mean, you can just, it's approximate lifespan, and it depends if diversions program gets successful or we get more population and growth, and it could deplete it faster. But just as a reminder, our consultant Element Engineering is working on analyzing the entire solid waste operation,
Right,
including looking at the landfill and confirming the capacity remaining for that landfill. So as long as you kind of make it general, and maybe we because we don't have, it could change. It's very dynamic.
I understand that the reluctance to put a number in there, and I think maybe a more general statement, which is sort of in here. Where's the edit? I'm not seeing it, Peter,
Look on the big screen.
on the screen. Big screen.
Of conduct.
Well, if you give us flexibility to reword this to just say that we have a shorter expected lifetime on that landfill, and
Georgine,
yes,
got a question. Why can't we just make the modification based on the previous statement of, 20, 25 years? Because if it's incorrect, then it should be corrected.
but the 100 years is definitely wrong. We need to have that struck. But it was kind of background information, the way they had stated it in the general plan draft. And so I think it's just taking out that misstatement, and whether we need another sentence in there that says how long or expected to be.
I think we'll, DM will correct that if you don't mind. I think we'll get the, because remember, this is 100-year was based on that general plan when it was drafted, even prior to the landfill activation. So we're talking about what's remaining,
I would rather DEM put in the language that you're comfortable with, just that we need.
Right.
An error.
Just
that
write a note, Peter will note that DM will adjust the language as it see fit within the studies being taken place at this time.
Is that
And
okay
then
with them?
We'll change it.
Is it okay with EMC to take out this paragraph then?
Yeah,
Is-
Peter, just work with,
In a letter to Zendo, yeah, let's take this out. We'll let DEM fix that.
This is EMC thing, sorry, not the Ramsey communication.
Right.
Peter's doing that too, so he'll make sure.
He'll probably have his own.
Okay, next one is, there are a series of recommended actions. Item 24, I said to, was that a new one? 24I, Jennifer.
I think that's supposed to be 24-1.
Yeah.
One.
Yeah. Ours only goes up, this only goes up to H.
So it's an addition. Is that correct,
Yes.
Dot? So you're recommending a new,
Recommending a sentence to follow the 24.1.
I think it's I, yeah.
Oh,
We'll have them renumber it.
actually,
Are we talking about, is it open to discuss 24? I don't know if it's
Yes, yeah.
point one or I.
maybe, yes, it was 24.I, which would be an addition.
Could I possibly have a little bit of background on the recommendation?
This was yours, Dot. Why did you want to get this in here?
I was discussing with EPA about injection wells and their influence on nearshore waters. And I got a response from one of the hydrologists from EPA, and he mentioned that they had a draft of draft guidance for future injection wells. And it comes from the Supreme Court, Maui versus the, let's see, which was,
Injunction law.
Yeah.
anyway, I asked them to look into what they're going to recommend for injection wells near shore waters. From Maui, there was a lawsuit that was brought to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court gave some guidance on how EPA should react to the vicinity of injection wells near shore waters. And essentially, if you can prove that your injection well will not influence nearshore waters, shoreline communities, then the EPA will not impose any kind of NPDES requirements on your injection well. But if we are if we would think ahead and think about where we put the I'm sorry, I got a phone call that we would ensure that these new injection wells would not impact the environment. We would save ourselves a lot of headaches in the future. So that's the reason for the recommendation, is that we do these kind of studies ahead of time before installing a new injection well, to ensure that the placement and the plume does not extend to the nearshore waters.
So
Let me, just one thing, Dorothy, I just want to bring it to all the commissioners' attention. As you guys reach out to these agencies, I hope you guys not reaching out in the name of the department or the county.
No.
Because there's a lot of multiple issues. We aware, my department is very cognizant of the lawsuit, very cognizant of the requirement and the calculations and what would it take to do it. So I just want to make sure that, you know, when you guys do that, if you do it on your own, don't do it under the representation of the county or DEM, because that could impact potentially any current, you know, project or any current discussion that's going with EPA. So just that's to all. Commissioner Sherry, I think you guys in the advisory committee, but I mean, we cannot prevent you doing your research, but just keep that in mind, because it's very dynamic as a government entity, we work with EPA and Department of Health on, ongoing projects, litigations, et cetera, et cetera. So I just want to make sure that
I
whatever
would,
we got.
we don't need to get you into trouble.
Well, and I
Can I-
feel like Maui's kind of, I mean, we've gone down this path with Maui's, like all the way to the highest court system of our nation, and then they sent it back to Hawaii. And we had a substantial, we being the state, had substantial amount of research of the impact of injection wells. And I'm wondering if this is like the best path, or if this is even necessary with the amount of research that Maui did in Lahaina and the amount of know-how that like Ramsey and DEM already understand the impacts that injection wells are bringing. With that judiciary, like guidance from the Supreme Court coming back to Hawaii saying we need to kind of fix our NPDES process. And I just am curious if this is needed.
And I'm not sure that it belongs in a
Can
general.
I inject here? Just a comment to respond to Ramsey. I did not mention any affiliation with the EMC. So that's not an issue. I was just doing my own research.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it got me to think, just to remind you guys, I mean, thanks for your research, but it also it reinforces, that reminder.
So again, the purpose of this was to look at whether or not EMC should file or send to Zendo Kern comments on the general plan as the Environmental Management Commission. We spotted the one, correct that, but we'll let DEM do it. So I guess maybe we are even asking the question, does EMC want to submit comments to the general plan as the commission? Is there a real purpose to doing it?
I think it's very beneficial. You guys brings a lot of issues to DM and the county, and we just talked about it earlier, right? Erica was talking about development and septic versus cesspools and what have you. This is, this is your opportunity. If you don't attend meeting and voice your stand on issues, it's not gonna get heard, and it's not gonna potentially get corrected. So I mean, Dorothy's bringing a good point. I mean, in the private sector, you're doing a resort, they may end up doing an injection well, but the Department of Health, just to let you know, is being very stringent and very hard on issuing permits for injection wells. But I mean, that's good to keep it as a reminder for resorts and private waste treatment plan. But is it, a planning issue? It's really a Department of Health issue.
Yeah.
Because it's gonna go
Laura
through.
has
I
comments.
just have a clarification point. So our EMC input is due. Because they did extend the date, correct? Can I get
I think it's March 1st.
Okay,
I
March
think
1st.
we're still good.
We're still good. We could still have one more
Discussion at
discussion. I mean, discuss and then do a little bit more. Okay.
Okay,
That's my-
but seeing the kinds of
Yes,
issues
good.
that are being raised
Yeah.
and the right context.
Yes.
And, is it back to the discussion that you had, that what we really want to see is where do we put in this thing that you're not going to allow a development that encourages or allows septic unless it has jumped through lots and lots of hoops, saying that's the last resort.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So we could think of it in that term.
Yeah, I like that a lot, and I also think that there's merit to thinking of injection well, at least in a preventative way. Of, I know that DOH is really inspecting them. And if there's an additional layer of precaution that we have a chance to like interject, I think that there would be, you know, if a development is proposing a new injection well, yeah, it would be great if they don't already do this through NPDS. I mean, NPDS is gonna look at all of this anyway, right?
Well, yes and no, because injection wells are still allowed by the state. In many states, they've.
Groundwater.
Right? So groundwater will become
Transportation.
increasingly dependent on, especially with sea level rise, et cetera, and with our own population growth. So just another potential source of pollution, whether you want to call it a point source or not, that gets into, you know, a bit of controversy. I think it's imperative that we put in, you know, we make a recommendation like this, you know.
Well, and the other issue is these two sections, the DEM asked us to focus on are strictly municipal solid waste and wastewater. What you're talking about in terms of injection wells is DOH and general development, and it may not fit into these two sections. It may be a broader part of the general plan where you've made comments about anytime you're looking at allowing a new development, there needs to be, you know, significant hurdles to putting in any new septic and evaluating injection wells. And frankly, my view of what DOH looks at it, they're just looking at drinking water. They don't care a heck of a lot about marine.
Well, presently, that's true, but Georgine, here's my question to you. Do you think it's our responsibility to ensure that the state, DOH, consider future government injection wells, because they have not ruled that out?
I do.
That's interesting. But I'm wondering if step back and look at, are there other places in the general plan to comment about some of this? As opposed to, these two sections are what DEM is planning for their areas of
Well,
responsibility.
Yeah, Georgiana and commissioners, I know we talked about it before, you know, the commission exists to advise the department on solid waste and wastewater. And over the last 3 years and since the existence of the commission, there's a lot of issues brought up by you guys and the constituents and the department that pertaining to how could we create policies and procedures that could benefit and deliver on what you guys all wanted. And I think what I'm saying, this is your opportunity to comment on all the issues that has been surfaced through your commission. A good example from the solid waste, you know, we keep talking about, you know, having a transfer station at each corner. Is that something that's going to continue? Are we going to allow for better hauling of the waste, or could we allow developers to start building their own area of waste collection, similar to an apartment complex in a subdivision? You know, these are the things that you guys, I think, could suggest from a development point of view, from your experience, from all the discussion that we had over the last, since, you know, I started 3 years ago under the current administration. So you need to capture your issues and concerns over the year and trying to address it as it's your opportunity, because this is General Plan 2045. And if you want change, if you want implementation to potentially become policies and procedure to fit your vision of where you sit, now the time to write it on ink and submit it to the planning so you'll be heard. I keep hearing a lot about, cesspool, wastewater, reef. This is your opportunity. If you want things to change from a planning point of view, I heard that also in the planning document, they say you cannot build that, you have a setback of 50 feet from the shoreline to build a septic or or some type of wastewater system. Is really 50 feet adequate? I don't know where the 50 feet came from. But if you guys are stewards for the environment, then speak out now and let it be known. And you guys have a lot of good comments over the year. Jog it down and present it to them so you could know that your comments is being submitted and heard, rather than just we have these meetings and continue talking about it. But if we cannot impact change, and this is the way to impact change, take opportunity and do it. Capture it. So it
Okay,
doesn't have to be to two bulleted item. It has to be to everything that you guys been working on from environmental point.
I wonder if like a good place to start, because I really appreciate what Ramsey is
Yeah.
saying, and I think that.
Yeah.
He has done so much and has tried to really, he's just done a lot. I see the amount of work that his office is doing. And what I'm wondering is if, I'm not as familiar obviously with the solid waste as I am with the wastewater, but I can absolutely very well begin a list of barriers that I see as being barriers that are preventing movement forward. And maybe if we could look at it from a barrier standpoint of solid waste and wastewater, and maybe work with Ramsey and DEM on identifying what regulations from a DEM perspective could help move that needle forward. And then try as much as we can look at it also from obviously a planning, and see if we could outline some solutions or at least recommendations to send to Zendo for the master plan.
I think that would be great. And appreciate you offering to do that. And I guess I would like to say for the next meeting, because we beat on this a couple times now, guys. Not maybe focus so much on the specifics that are in the solid waste and wastewater listings. I mean, if you've got some problems with individual items that are listed there, but look at it at a bigger picture of the general plan in general.
Yeah.
General.
Yeah.
What do we want planning to be thinking about? I mean, one of my little pet peeves is, reference the 2019 integrated solid waste management plan. They're talking about the 2009, because that's when they did the last general plan. So update that, will you? And look at the recommendations that are in there, and that Find EM has listed these priorities that they want to look at. But there's this huge body of work that's there, and I don't know if planning has even looked at it. So back off and see if there are big issues that we want them to try to incorporate. The way they've set up the comments for the general plan is you're going online, you're editing and putting comments into specific language that's in their draft. That's awkward.
Harder.
You can try looking at where there are places to do that. But for example, one of the things I'd like to see in there is supporting the recommendation that we sent to council.
Great.
That we are planning to achieve diversion from landfill for things that we can use, reuse, and recycle. So
Yes.
that ought to be in the general plan,
Yeah.
because by 2045, we ought to have a lot of stuff out of the landfill.
Yeah.
And be using it into And there is language that's already here about the resource recovery part concept, but we can get a little bit harder on, do what we've already recommended. Another big piece that we had in the ISWMP is planning and for any business, whether it's operations or building permit or any kind of permit, the planning gets involved in. A piece of that should include waste prevention.
Nice.
Yeah, preventing the creation of waste in the first place,
Zero-
that you're managing the resources that you didn't happen to need when you built your place or you knocked it down and refurbished it, whatever reason you got a permit for. That would be a different kind of statement. It doesn't quite fit into the two positions, sections here about solid waste and waste management, but it is part of the development planning process and permitting process should have these elements to it. And one of my pet peeves is there ought to be a requirement that you're thinking about the waste you're gonna generate and how you're gonna reduce and reuse, recycle. And have a plan, and somebody that you're gonna hire at DEM is gonna have to look at it and see whether or not it's adequate. But just asking somebody to think about it will help even a little bit. So, bigger picture. I think it's what we're hearing Ramsey saying, what I love doing.
Yeah,
So,
makes sense.
okay, next time, that's the assignment. I'll help you write it up. And March 1st is the end of this, so I'll go ahead and add it in. I will say that we need to keep it somewhat within our charter of what the EMC is about, which is the area of waste as it's managed by the county. So there needs to be some nexus for us to call it an EMC recommendation. Each of you individually wail on the thing.
Can I ask a question in regards to that? Can we as the EMC recommend our county council for state action?
Yeah,
That's the next.
that's what
one
we
on the
did.
list.
Sorry,
Yeah,
I was just.
No, that's not okay, totally.
Okay.
No dumb questions at all. Okay,
Yeah.
we're done with that. Next
Well-
meeting.
Maybe we're done with it.
Oh,
Just a quick one.
go ahead.
I don't disagree with this insertion that's been recommended at all. It may be in a different place in the future. I'm completely open to that. I'm a little concerned with only mentioning injection wells, because there's plenty of other sources in other states that aren't addressed in, presently. And I'll just use one, opened, state of North Carolina opened pools for holding waste from different sources that usually get flooded and go directly into their rivers. They're used as water sources for cities. So we need to think a little broader than our present sins.
Right, that makes sense. Just because it's not being done now doesn't mean.
Well, some of them are being done and have been
But I
done,
mean,
but they would never been addressed. So we have had sewage full ponds before and do.
So that really makes me see now where it's around of the alkaline ponds, right?
Along, Georgine.
Yes, sure.
She is asking you folks to make recommendations, send it to Peter so that we can update this. And you guys can have an open discussion and a vote at next month's meeting.
Yeah.
So that we can move on.
Up and down.
That makes sense.
Thank you. And feel free not to be constrained by the individual items and editing that specific language. Okay. Moving on to number 4. Adoption of a position regarding support for extended producer responsibility legislation, such as SB 1458 or whatever it turns into for 2024. We postponed this, had some previous discussions.
Just need a new second.
Yes.
Okay. Because John had been the seconder. Well, I'm describing the topic. So the topic is, do we want to do something about extended producer responsibility legislation? And how do we cast it? Whether this is a specific language, do you want to still make a motion for this language, or are we open to new language?
And so point of clarification, is this then the EMC could recommend to the council to either look into supporting this or directly saying the EMC supports it, please support on the state level? I'm just wondering the protocol in terms of.
Either.
Okay,
So allow EMC to send testimony directly to the legislature. Provided there are drafts of the communications of the testimony that are posted online.
So we could file specific testimony with the Senate House.
Yeah.
If we wanted to, or we could provide it to DEM for their testimony, because we know they'll be testifying on whatever applicable bills, or we could send to the council and say, when you get your 2 cents in. Three.
Yes.
yeah, can we do all three?
We copy the world, sure.
Yeah. CC.
And we will, it'll be on a public.
Okay. Yeah, so I would then motion for that, that we adopt a position of support for extended producer responsibility and, so that would be then in recommending to DEM, our council and
State
EMC into the state legislature.
Is this the same motion from last meeting, or is it any changes from?
Would you strike the such as specific
Well,
bill number?
and I guess that would be for discussion because Senate Bill 1458, for example, is sitting in WAM. And I think also, I'm not 100% sure, but it sounded like from earlier testimony, public testimony, that the House bill is also, the same House bill is in some positioning, maybe in finance. And so those two are still alive. And so that could be, and it's very different from this new bill. So I think it would have to be specific to SB 1458. Or we would open up more general and say supporting the concept of EPR as, as it is specifically being worked on, because they might not pick this up. If it moves, that's one thing, but if it doesn't.
I don't know. I'm not so good at
Yeah, I don't
this
know.
protocol.
Me too.
We need a second on the motion and then we can discuss, or we can talk, because she hasn't quite firmly stated a motion.
So it would be good if you just make a motion, and I would recommend that the motion be to adopt. The EMC will adopt a position regarding support for extended producer responsibility legislation during this 2024 legislative session. And then whatever form it takes is what you folks
Because we
can
could-
continue to follow.
We can amend the motion, that's what I said.
Well, you won't need to if you don't put what the current
Specifics.
number is
Gotcha.
in.
Yes, okay, sounds good. So the motion then is to adopt a position of support for extended producer responsibility legislation in 2024 legislative session. And with those 3 avenues that we discussed, which is state, EMC, DEM, and council. Yes.
You need a second?
I second.
Discussion?
Okay, discussion, it's all in terms of flavor and detail.
Totally.
Support for, as example, I did not support submitted testimony opposing the House version, whatever number that was, 1326, I think it was. of that bill. For various assorted reasons, I thought it not ready for prime time. And didn't really hit the EPR definition and intent. I do like the one that Jennifer had talked about. And I would really like to see some experience coming from California and the other states that are working specifically on packaging EPR legislation regulations, and they're working through the weeds and dealing with how do we make this work in our state. And California is not Hawaii County.
Definitely.
And so learning lessons as we can, and I think some EPRs legislation goes a step too far for us. But the general concept, EPR is one of the solutions to certain types of waste. And how we can construct it and make it work in this island is a worthy effort if it can result in significant diversion from the landfill. If it keeps a ton of plastic straws out of the landfill, I'd rather spend my time working on something that's bigger. Construction and demo, organics. Let's, although organics on extended producer responsibility would be interesting, but so how it gets framed, how big it's gonna be, and then working the individual language is a whole nother step. So as far as general support, yes, extended producer responsibility has to be in that kit that we use to tackle these problems, but it's not the only answer. And individual examples may or may not work. So if we can keep it at that high level, as you stated, support, and then we get to the point, all right, specifically, we've got a bill that's looks like it's gonna live. We can detail it out. So that would be my nature of support of a general support. Steve.
Can I respond to that too? Because I think in general, I 100% agree. And also I think with the caveat or the acknowledgement that there are different kinds of EPR that are very different. So again, where you're talking, there's the PRO and non-PRO, that's very different. And then, and bringing up California, for example, and you brought it up earlier, we don't have industry that's doing the recycling. So again, we are an island state, very different than California in terms of that kind of recycling capacity at the moment. And so yes, there, and with that acknowledgement that there are different kinds of EPR, as opposed to thinking all EPR is the same. Therefore, we generally, putting out that general support gets a little bit scary almost, because it's very different. Yeah.
Other comments? Are there any hands online? They look frozen. Move, guys. Show your line.
They're very, they're very serious.
Any other comments here? No, the peanut gallery, they're off the. Unless you want to submit testimony for next.
Can't take it right now.
Oh, and I can't take it right now.
We're in the middle of a motion.
Keeping us on the rows. All right, are we ready for a vote?
Yes.
Can we have a restatement of the motion?
I wrote support for EPR legislation in 2024 for state EMC, DM and county council matters. Right, Chairman. I have the report.
Can we add the acknowledgement or that there are different, or that gets confusing, but adding.
Can it be missing? It's basically the approach or the concept. The thing that EPR.
Which then the state does their job, if they're doing their job in public hearing and working through and having the stakeholders, right holders, et cetera, contributing to the conversation in those constitutionally mandated public
Not the
hearings.
back rooms, yes.
So quick question, just or again, order of operation. If we submit a general statement, I like the general component of this. If we submit a general statement in support. And wait at least until we know more of what is being introduced, how it's gonna be languaged. If it is very, very different from the original last year, 1458. Or different than what we have, we can then make more edits to our recommendation, right? Or change our recommendation.
This isn't to send anything at this point, it's just EMC is taking a position of support. But what you are doing is you're looking at what's gonna be coming down in this legislative session and deciding what specific, if any, you folks will be submitting as the EMC. Because that nothing prevents you from submitting individual testimony, right? But if there's gonna be just at that time, a general statement of support coming from EMC and whether or not you folks would, as EMC, submit recommendations for changes or whatever it may be, that will be done at that time.
Makes sense.
Yes,
Okay.
at that time, because this could also go nowhere
Right.
and there won't be an opportunity to submit testimony. So that's all,
Absolutely.
it's very
Yeah.
general.
Is that something that is in line with the process of what, because it just seems like there's so
No.
many drafts of this.
It makes
right now.
complete sense to just say, as a concept, we are, and.
Which,
Yeah.
as an
makes complete
example, we
sense.
could say we're opposed anybody wanting to open burn trash on this island.
Mhm.
Nothing. But, so it's a position of, yeah, we like the idea. And it devil's in the
It
detail,
definitely
we'll deal
needs to
with
be
that.
explored.
We get to.
It is a direction we need to be going in. It's something that we need to explore.
And
Yes.
that
Okay,
we
great.
should
That feels good.
want to keep it on the agenda.
Yes.
Okay,
Great, thank you.
so a second to that motion.
It's already been.
It hasn't
it's already been done.
Yes.
Oh, you got somebody seconded, all right, call, vote. All in favor?
Let's do roll call.
Roll call.
On the motion, Ms. Ocasio,
Aye.
Mr. Beats,
Aye.
Mr. Garcia,
Aye. Aye.
okay. Mr. McIntosh,
Nay.
is that a nay?
Yes.
sorry?
Nay. No.
No. Okay. Ms. Otsuka,
Del?
please unmute or give a thumbs up or down.
Aye.
Aye. Ms. Perez?
Aye.
Aye. Ms. Norris,
Aye.
Chair Adams?
Aye.
Chair, you have 7 ayes, 1 nay, motion carries.
But now that we've already carried it, I do wish I knew what your issues were, Lee.
Yeah.
Well, we'll.
I can't reopen the discussion, so next time we get to actually doing something.
Yeah, it's important.
You speak up.
Yeah, me too. I was curious.
Eh. All right, yeah, new business. Do we need to go to the bathroom? Oh, I'm sorry.
That is business.
That was business. Do we need to help out in wastewater management? 5-minute break? I see a couple nods here.
Yes.
Don't fall asleep, Lee. Okay, we're back online, and following through with our new business. We already had our discussion with Corolla, and I do encourage you to read through. Oh, did you give everybody a copy of their presentation? Are you gonna look at the materials from the
I'll make sure to send it out.
recording of the committee meeting? And the item 2 is election, annual election of EMC officers. That's the chair and vice chair. And that needs to be by nomination. And If there are any nominations from the floor. Jim B.
I would like to nominate you. So, go take that for chair.
I would be happy to be chair. Good, that's a good one. So I have to get a second or just? vote?
Sure.
Anybody else want to be chair? I'm not seeing lots of people jumping up and saying me, me, me.
No good deed goes
This is my last,
Then we motion. If there's nobody else, then
Then we
someone
can
can make a motion.
okay, now we need a motion.
I would like to make a motion to accept Georgine by acclamation.
Right, do we have a second? Okay, now everybody, oh, we gotta vote. Okay. We're going to vote.
Dr. muted.
Dot doesn't want to vote for me, that's fine.
Okay, so we have a motion to elect Georgine chair by unanimous consent. Is there any dissent to this motion? No, no
No
objections,
dissent?
Chair.
All right, you're stuck with me for another year, guys. This is my last year on EMC, I term out. So if you know anybody from District 9 who want to be on the commission, let me know. Vice Chair, now everybody raises their hand, right?
He's just laughing. Though.
Lady, do you want to be Vice Chair? I didn't do any surveys ahead of time, so.
I'll
It's
be
a
vice
good
chair.
learning
Nobody else
experience.
wants
for
to
me.
be.
So what was that?
He said he'll do it if no one else.
I
Oh,
said
if
I'll
not-
be the vice chair if nobody else wants to. It'll just be a little rough if I have to do a meeting.
Rougher than me? Gee.
Dot, do you have a nomination?
I would nominate myself as well.
You would like to be? I don't know, I'm having trouble with sound.
Yes.
Okay, so we have 2 nominees possible. Anybody else?
I would like to nominate Erica Perez, but she would have to agree. I thought when you're or vice chair.
For vice chair, and the responsibilities of vice chair is when I'm not here. Well, I should warn you all, I'm not here next meeting. I'll be on a plane.
I would love to learn. I'm so honored by the recommendation. But I would love to learn more.
Next year.
Definitely understand.
Okay.
I retract my nomination then.
All right, so we need a motion, for either or both. What do we do?
I would, yeah,
One,
I would I'd like to make a motion to nominate Dot.
do I have a second? I'll second. Should we have a vote? No, do we vote?
Oh, yeah, we should.
Okay, and then we need to, I know. And then a separate motion.
Is there any discussion on the nomination for vice chair?
I just have one comment, just because I know there were 2 nominees, and I do also support, I don't, it's not a lack of confidence, but it was more like because Lee, you said that if someone else wanted to, so that's where I went to Dot first. So
Are you still in that mind of if somebody else wants to, you're okay? Putting
No,
your
that's-
hand up? Can't hear.
That's fine.
okay,
We'll-
sounds good.
We'll see if it gets 5. If it doesn't get to 5, then we'll go to the next nominee.
Okay,
Well, point of clarification, I didn't hear a nomination for Lee. I just heard a question asking.
No, he nominated.
He did?
Oh, well, I guess not.
no, we have
A nomination that.
a motion
For Dot.
for Dot. They got seconded.
Yes.
So we can vote on her, and if she doesn't get enough votes, then we'll get another motion for someone else.
Right. Make it as complicated as possible.
Okay.
On-
So,
On the election of vice chair, Ms. Ocasio.
Aye. Aye.
Mr. Beats,
Aye.
Mr. Garcia.
Aye.
Oh, aye, Mr. Garcia, Mr. McIntosh,
Aye.
aye. Ms. Otsuka,
Aye.
aye. Ms. Perez, aye. Ms. Norris. Ms. Norris, thumbs up, okay. Chair Adams, aye.
Thank you very much, Doc.
Chair,
Mm,
8
thank
ayes.
you.
I'll coordinate with you for next meeting.
Please do.
And Lee, it seems like you're having a bad day. What can we do to make it better?
I'm sick.
Oh, no.
Hurry up.
No COVID. All right, on to the director's information report. This is in writing. And thank you for that. We always appreciate something to look at. And I maybe what I'll do is just up front ask people, do you have any burning questions since it's noon? Sorry about that. Oh, it's 11:50. Tons of time. Were there any burning issues? Otherwise, I'll ask DM to highlight what they'd like to highlight. Seeing none, Dell. You're in the dark there, I see you. There was new information provided on organics, green waste, and whether you would like Craig, if he's on, to talk about that, or if you have any questions about the presentation of the information.
Well, I did email Peter. I wasn't able to download any of that.
Oh, no.
So, yeah, I just couldn't. But no, I appreciate the fact that we're bringing it up as a monthly kind of agenda item, because I think it's important. From what I understand, there's still an abundance of inventory at Pu'u'anahulu on the green waste. So I wanted to ask about that and the mulch. So I understand that the trucks are not bringing back the mulch. Or if they did, they only brought back 48 yards of it for the whole month of January. So I just wanted an update on that and what we can expect, every month to see a more substantial movement of that mulch to East Hawaii, because the need is more in East Hawaii. And that's kind of it for that.
Is Craig online?
Yeah, it just got on.
Okay.
Yeah,
Hi, Craig.
so so they're gonna start moving mulch again, but it's what do you call that? It's when the trucks are available and time-wise, because they have to go over, drop the trash, and then load up the mulch and then come back. I think the drivers go like at least twice a day, up and over.
Oh, I thought it was more like 8 times a day.
Oh, it's 4 trucks. Sorry, 4 trucks. So they're just going back and forth with the trash.
Okay. So do you suppose maybe the last of the 2 trips they could bring back mulch, at least that? Because again, I know.
So they're gonna increase for this month.
Well, I know I raised this before about the hazardous condition by having the amount of green waste there.
Hello?
So I was thinking maybe Erica, are you from that area in Puako or Waikoloa?
No, I'm not.
That's me.
I just do a lot of work over in that area.
Yeah, so I was there. And from what I understand, I was the only one there that visited. And at the time, the levels there were so high there was no room and it was a potential fire threat. And so that's why I kind of want to be on this all the time. Oh, excuse me, duty calls. But yeah, that was that on the movement of the mulch to East Hawaii, since the need is greater in East Hawaii. Although they are moving it to Kealakekee, which is a good thing. Thank you, Craig.
Yeah,
Well,
so they're gonna start moving in January. More mulch.
Okay, thank you.
Is this how much? I'm sorry. I don't have. Ask Craig, if you've got a question about the numbers, I'm not the expert.
Okay. Is this how
Yeah,
much
still here.
of these are being produced in these regions? Is that the
Yeah,
numbers?
so like
That's how much-
the East Hawaii Organics facility, the first column, I think it's what residents drop off at the site. And then the next column would be the commercial green waste drop off at the site. And then the third column is the amount of green waste dropped from the different transfer stations, which I think is Volcano,
They have their own little bucket.
KL.
So overall, East Hawaii Organics facility is receiving 4.6 tons of mulch per these dates, or
Total.
between these date range.
Monthly.
No, with all of these added up.
That's what they received in that 5-month time.
Yeah, 5 months.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the transfer stations for these. Actually, I think these numbers are supposed to have. But I don't. Obviously, the majority of the green waste is coming from West Hawaii. And the issue of what's happened to the mulch is a separate issue that if I'm remembering correctly, Craig, you said you didn't quite get all the numbers.
Yeah, I haven't gotten all the numbers, confirmed the numbers for the mulch that goes out to the public and commercial.
So try to pick that up next time.
Yeah, I'll have that numbers.
Okay, so we have the data in, but not the data out. Is that
No,
what you're
not
saying?
post mulch.
Got it.
Thank you,
Use
Craig.
the pump is being used.
Picked up, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we run out frequently over on our side. for
And-
pickup.
But then the difference between,
It's huge, right?
it's huge.
That's crazy.
Wow. So that needs to be addressed in a different way.
And the issue with I'm sorry, I'm asking you. And the issue with transportation, again, I'm just trying to understand this a little bit more, I'm sorry. The issue with transportation is just that we just don't have enough trucks. Is that super simplified?
I think it's like the backhauling, yeah.
Okay.
Should not be the county's responsibility.
And then one more question. So, but also it seems like more is getting dropped off in West Hawaii. So it's
Well-
not so much I mean, my question is not as much the transport of mulch after the fact, but just looking at this data, they're collecting more mulch on that, or more green on that side.
If you think about the.
Yeah, more green waste.
Okay.
If you think about the demographics.
Right. Okay, great.
Thank
Good.
you.
This
On
is-
this side,
this-
we recycle and do our own
That
thing.
took a
Not so
lot
much.
to connect those. Totally. No, but that's why I'm thinking this data is gold for further discussion about what our whole system looks like, and also who is responsible and who's putting into that system. Awesome. This is great. This is gold. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig.
Okay.
It's very exciting.
And now if we can only turn the mulch into compost. That really make it swale. Okay, any other questions about what is in the director's report? So there was comment, and I think we heard last meeting, 1.5 million is going to Jennifer's reusable foodware program over in Hilo. And she gave us an update at our last meeting. And as they're going through getting public input on their design of the program. And so I think we still would like to get some periodic updates from her on how that's going. Yeah, no, I won't make comments, but the last comment I heard from her, anyway, going good. Any significant updates you want to make on the wastewater division projects? Ramsey? Again, they've got all this online. It's really nicely laid out on what is being covered. And when the dates are, getting a lot of public input. I'm really pleased to see how that goes. The solid waste operational study is chugging along. Could you tell us again when some report outs should show up on that?
They're looking at October of this year. But, you know, I believe they did do presentation to you guys, and they're gonna have public meetings, and the report, my understanding, tentatively October of this year.
Okay. And I know everything seems to be off sync for being able to use the results of that study in some of the legislation and general plan and all that good stuff. If there are no comments DEM would like to make and no questions from the commissioners on the director's report, we want to close that? Okay, thank you. Future agenda items, items 8. Follow up from today. We've all got some more homework. Again, redo it again. You didn't write it right the first time. On the general plan. We should see some juicy stuff coming from legislation beginning to move. Peter is the expert in tracking which bills are going where at the state level. Cool. So we'll have that if there, hopefully Craig will get some more data to give us on the actual mulch transfer and logistics of getting it east side, west side. So we hope that we'll see that. If anybody has, for the newbies, if you have any questions you would like to see the director respond to in his report, we tend to get these quarterly rather than monthly. But they'll answer questions, so just ship it to Peter and I. And we'll work it into the agenda if that is appropriate. And I have to look through the minutes. If there are any other items we called out today to get into the agenda. But you're welcome to make suggestions for what we ought to cover at the next meeting. Except I won't even be able to listen in. I'll be on a plane. Announcements. Our next meeting is in Kona. And on February 28th in the West Hawaii Civic Center. Again, you have the option of zooming in. And just a announcement of some things I'm doing, just to let you know. I'm gonna give 4 minutes. I was given 4 whole minutes to make a description of what EMC is up to at the Waimea Town Hall. They're having all the county commissions talk for 4 minutes. I don't think I can do that, but I'll try. The other thing, I'm working with a couple of people, specifically Harvey Stone, on putting together a workshop as part of the Sustainability Summit that Mayor Roth holds, and looking at what we can talk about regarding waste management. And I won't be pushing EMC specifically, but probably drawing on, I was a member of the Integrated Solid Waste Action Plan, that committee that wrote up the Integrated Solid Waste Management Plan. So we're trying to figure out what do we want to come out of that. Also, beginning more as a CC so far, but getting closer to talking with Heather Kimball on the recycle ban, landfill ban, and how do we want to organize that. One of the thoughts was maybe we could do some workshopping with this sustainability summit. No, we want to duplicate. No, so we're still talking about who, when, what, how. But she's interested in moving on that. So I think it's just gearing up for it. Any other announcements from anybody else?
I have an announcement.
Laura.
So on Saturday, this past Saturday, Hanai Kaiaulu, who presented on their compost cardboard shredding to mulch program, brought over students from YNI, or from Nanakuli actually, and they worked with Waikea High School Key Club amongst their agriculture department, and they held an event called Sustainable Saturday. I don't have the exact number that was diverted, but it was an incredible amount of shredding that happened. Folks went home with weed mat, cardboard weed mat, because after the shredding, and bedding for animals and such to turn into their compost. And I will have the data later, just for curious, but there were a lot of different sponsors in our community that contributed. Folks would bring their cardboard. The students were and volunteers were shredding. They could go home with shredded cardboard, and they also went home with boxes of produce. So it was also a joint collaboration with Kokua Harvest, who works with the food basket, but they source so from Lama Lama Ka'ulu, which is a wellness Hawaiian wellness center in Pepikeo. They got 3 days before volunteers harvested over 700 pounds of fresh produce and donated it to the event. So folks went home with tons of fresh produce. And it's going to be an ongoing event, resource recovery, community education day. And so in the future, it'd be great to partner more with the county on that level. But many sponsors. There's a lot of sponsors. I don't need to list them at this moment, but just keep an eye out for that in our community. There's a few projects underway.
Great. Anything else anybody needs to bring up? Gonzalez.
Yes.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
No.
Okay, so kind of going online in line with what you just discussed, Laura, was the cardboard folks. So I was so impressed by their presentation. I've actually set them up to give a presentation tomorrow for the Thursday Rotary. And there's a great deal of interest in the Rotary group to fund one of the shredding machines for them to use potentially down in Ocean View to help with the Marshallese community down there. So it's a really exciting opportunity. I'm not I didn't do it as a representative of the EMC or anything like that. I just was so impressed. I set it up as a Rotary function tomorrow. And hopefully the Rotary will provide funding for that piece of equipment.
Oh, that's
Awesome.
great. Yay.
Well, good things happen, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Anything else? Laura?
No, and just real quickly that we are also working with council members, individual council member to work through some of the questions that were posed about the film industry diversion or zero waste plan. So just an update, still happening, just slow going.
All right. Anybody want to make a motion to adjourn?
A motion
So
to
moved.
adjourn. Anyone want a second? Second.
All in favor?
Who's second?
Erica.
I.
Thank you very much for putting up with a long meeting and go to bed, Lee.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's so cool. I love connections. That's the